All right, mock draft season continues, and this time what I'm going to be doing is not the smartest mock draft. In fact, it might be the stupidest mock draft. I am going with the all chaos mock draft. So what am I trying to do here? What I am trying to do is come up with a mock draft that would be the most interesting to talk about the next day. The day after the draft happens, what would be the one where like, that's crazy? Every video that I make that night when I do my immediate reactions for each pick is just like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. That's what I'm trying to do. But I want to keep it somewhat realistic. I'm the rules I'm setting are this has to be something I can say has a greater than like 0.01% chance of happening. So there's not going to be, 32 quarterbacks taken or something like that. So, okay, if it has a 0.5% chance, then I'll allow it. Anything lower and I won't. Okay, fair enough. Let's get into the list. So first 8, and quite frankly, I think that Cam Ward, there's nothing that there's a 0.05 or what did I say, 0.5% chance. I think Cam Ward has more than a 99.5% chance of getting selected by the Titans. I just think it's going to happen, so I'm just keeping it there. But where things could get really interesting is what if the Browns, this whole time, everyone says, okay, they're not going quarterback, they decide to select Shedeur Sanders at number 2. Everyone goes crazy. Now, maybe the Giants, wanted Shedeur Sanders, or who knows, but they ultimately say, you know what, we got to get Travis Hunter, and then the Patriots can celebrate and pop champagne and run laps around their office building because they get Abdul Carter, and they would be thrilled. So, okay, that's the one major chaotic thing that could really happen within the top 4. Then I decided, okay, the Jaguars select at 5. Everyone has them selecting Mason Graham at 5. But what if they're not quite as crazy and maybe would like some extra draft capital? Everyone has the Raiders at 6, selecting Ashton Genty. So what I have is the Bears trading to jump the Raiders, making sure that they can get Ashton Genty, who Ben Johnson, we know he values running backs, getting something like that to really just, again, try and make this as good of a situation as possible for Caleb Williams. Well, okay, so they do that. The Raiders now have pick number 6. They say, well, shoot, that's the guy we wanted to draft. We don't really love a guy right here, so let's trade back with the 49ers. The 49ers now have the 6th overall pick, and they did that to jump the Jets and get Armand Membo. They wanted to have that tackle instead, which I, quite frankly, think this is the move that the 49ers should consider. Now, again, will a team be willing to trade back in the top 6 picks? We'll see. I have 2 teams doing it because I'm trying for chaos, but that is something that I think could be interesting. Now, the Jets, they have to scramble. They want to tackle. They decide to go with Kelvin Banks Jr. This is chaotic because, now people are going to say, did they actually want Kelvin Banks Jr. or did they panic because of that? Is this a Will McDonald situation where it seemed like that was more of a panic pick, even though he had a lot of sacks last year? So that's what it felt like at the time, right? I think that could create some chaos. And then just the Panthers getting Mason Graham because he's a good player, and they're saying, well, let's just take best player available. That's not the most chaotic thing in the world, but I just think it would happen. So, if it's over 99.5% chance, I kind of got to just pull the trigger. Next 8 here. Now, 2 of these teams have changed just because 2 teams traded back. At number 9, Will Campbell goes here to the Saints. No Shedeur Sanders, so they just take the best offensive lineman still on the board. There could be some okay, is he a tackle or a guard situation stuff going on, which is already going on with him. Number 10, I have the Jaguars selecting Hampton here, which I don't think is crazy. I mean, again, remember, Gibbs was selected way earlier than we thought he would. Sometimes that happens. Honestly, I feel like usually running backs get drafted earlier than we expect them to. So it's a little crazy. It's the chaotic mock draft. But ultimately, I think that Liam Cohen knows that last year, the Buccaneers do not have the season they had without Bucky Irving. He was a really important piece to that team and to the running scheme, and having a good running back, which he values the running game, that is something they could look towards. So they trade back, decide not to get Genty, but get the extra draft capital and still get a running back that some people very much like. And then for number 11, I have Tyler Warren, which this is just are the Raiders all tight end stuff now because you have Michael Mayer and you have Brock Bowers and you have Tyler Warren. Maybe they trade Mayer and go with Bowers and Warren and just try to play smash mouth football, which could be fun. Number 12, I have the Cowboys going with Jalen Walker, who the reason why this is chaotic is because he's very similar in some ways to Micah Parsons in terms of being an off-ball linebacker who also plays edge. You kind of have that unique dynamic. It's not a great fit. It's not the most chaotic thing in the world, but sometimes you got to just make something work with some of these picks. You can't make them all super chaotic. Number 13, I have Ted McMillan going to the Miami Dolphins just because, like, okay, he's a great player. He falls to 13. Well, sure, let's take him. But also, receiver is so much what they're already great at. It would just be funny if they like triple down on getting good receivers. So yeah, that's why I had that one there. 14. Okay, the Colts taking Colston Loveland, that's not going to really get the people going. But it's a little bit chaotic of like, oh, well, you know, did they really want him or did they want Tyler Warren? I don't know. Trying to make something work. Doing what I can to fit a square peg into a round hole for a couple of these, like Mike Green and Jahdae Barron. Those are kind of just picks I think would happen. So sometimes you got to keep the line moving with some of these picks, which is what I'm doing. At number 17, Shamar Stewart would be the chaotic pick, which actually might happen. A lot of people are projecting this to happen, but just, you know, the Bengals really need defensive help. Going with a developmental guy would just really get conversations going, right? It'd be, you know, something we'd have to pay attention to. So that's why I have that there. Then I have a couple of trades. So Tampa Bay picks at 19. So I'm going to have the Rams trade with their division rival, the Seahawks, go up to 18 and select Jahad Campbell. Really good linebacker. The Rams don't notoriously value this position too much, but they want to, you know, they think he's a good player and they want to get him instead of letting Tampa Bay get him. So that's what they decide to do. Now Tampa Bay says, well, there goes our pick, but you know what? The Giants have been on the phone. We've been talking about this. They might want a quarterback. They know the Steelers are paying attention to quarterbacks. So let's trade with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are out of the first round now, but the Giants get into the first round and select Jackson Dart. So they still get a quarterback, just not in the first round, or I guess technically not with their first pick. Travis Hunter, and then they get Jackson Dart. I do think the Giants would like something like this. Now, I think they would like to not have to trade up to get Jackson Dart. Maybe he just falls to round 2, and then that could be something that would work. But that way, you still go quarterback, but you don't have to go that early. Number 20, a couple of these picks I might be pushing the within reason aspect of it, but I'm having fun here. What about Cam Scatterbo going number 20? There's been a lot of talk about the Broncos wanting a running back, but Hampton's off the board, so maybe they go with, hey, Cam Scatterbo. He's number 5 on my top running backs list. He's number 3 on PFF's top running backs list, which was surprising to see because I thought I was kind of being hot takey with him at 5. So yeah, maybe Sean Payton. Hey, I'm sure he loves him as a player. Probably not in round 1, but I'm sure he loves him as a player. And in 21, we're really having fun here. What about Jalen Milroe to the Steelers? Okay, let's just say they wanted a quarterback. And now that Jackson Dart's off the board, they're just like, well, what do we do? We thought Dart was going to fall to us at 21, which is why the Giants traded up to 19 to get him. Now that he's off the board, well, let's just go with Milroe because he's a developmental guy. Maybe we can have him develop and play well. Probably not going to happen, but it's fun to think about. 22, I have Matthew Golden to the Chargers. This is chaotic just because it would be good and like cool to see another good player for the Chargers that are continuing to rebuild. Not chaotic, but still something there. We then have a couple of trades. Again, I actually think this could just straight up happen, or like maybe the Packers trade with the Bills. The Packers get an extra pick, and the Bills get Will Johnson, the corner. Then the Chiefs trade 1 pick later with the Vikings to get a guard, Gray Zabel. I'm going to have him at guard because I already have the tackle, and I think that's also extra chaos just because, okay, the Chiefs already tried drafting a player from a smaller school with Sumatea. That didn't fully work. They're doubling down, but will it work this time? I think that could create some intrigue. Okay, so next up we have the Texans who are going to select Josh Simmons. They're going to just take a offensive lineman, 99.5% chance or higher. They're just going with Josh Simmons in this case, so that's what I went there. Then at 26, so remember, the Rams traded up with the Seattle Seahawks That was to get Jahad Campbell. So now it was the Seahawks pick at 26. I'm going to have them trade with the Eagles. There's a lot of edge rusher needy teams coming up. And so they're just going to say, you know what, let's trade up and let's get James Pierce Jr., a player who I think they would really like. The character concerns aren't going to scare them off. They decide to trade up and make this happen. Then at 27, I think Ravens just take Mikael Williams. They're fine with it, whatever. Again, not the most exciting. Then at 28, Lions, they wanted Mikael Williams or James Pierce. They were excited, and then the trade happened, and they said, oh no. So now what do? They have to scramble. Well, they don't have to, because they like Kyle Williams. Yes, this is a massive reach, and you might say there is no way, even a 0.5% chance this works. But you know what? I think he would fit that scheme perfectly well. I think he is a great player. I have him as a first-round talent, to be honest. I really like him as a player. Again, probably not going to happen, obviously, but if there was no one else still available, maybe you could picture a world where it would happen. We know the Lions aren't afraid to reach with the Gibbs pick and all of that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, that's something that you could try and talk yourself into, perhaps. Number 29, I decided just what if the Commanders, again, just double down on the interior defensive line and still didn't really work on the secondary, which they haven't spent a lot of resources on this offseason, despite it being kind of on paper their biggest need. I don't know, not that chaotic, but I'm doing what I can here with some of these picks. We didn't have the Packers at 30, who, remember, the Packers and Vikings both traded back with the Bills and Chiefs. So the Packers, Malachi Starks, I just think this would happen, and also I guess they don't really have a need for him. So what do you do with him? Okay, doing my best here. Number 31, Emeka Ekbuka of from Ohio State goes to the Vikings. The reason why this is chaotic is kind of obvious because, hey, they don't really need a receiver, right? That's not a big position of need. But ultimately, I think they could say, well, we just like him as a player and want him. And so that's why we're going with it. And every team could use a receiver, right? For 32 for the Seahawks, there really isn't that much crazy things they could do. So I just decided, well, what if they just reached on an interior offensive lineman, got like Jared Wilson? It could be whoever, but something like that. That's my way I can try and go with the, chaos there. Sprinkle a little bit of chaos in the mix with one big reach. You need one big reach to have some fun when it comes to the chaos mock draft. But yeah, ultimately, I said at the beginning, this might be the stupidest. I hope I lived up to the hype there. It's always kind of fun, though. At least it's fun to make. Hopefully, it's fun to watch. But those are my thoughts on all of those picks. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from ya. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.